To this video. This is part 2 of how to pre-part for knotless braids. If you haven't seen part 1, it's linked down below in the description box, and that was showing you how to create these sections, these small subsections for you. This video is going to show you how to do your brick layers so that every single braid that you create falls in between each other. And if you don't know, brick layering is necessary, and it's almost a requirement that people are looking for now when looking for quality braids. So first we're going to go ahead. I did my first row. I'm working on this second row. As you can see, I already have the middle part going straight down, and it falls right in between that bottom braid. So all I have to do is on each section, these 2 sections I have here, is just split them in half. That's it. And that's going to give me 4 braids at the top. What you want to keep in mind when brick layering is if you're starting off with an odd number, your section above it is going to be an even number. If you're starting off with an even number, your section above that's going to be an odd number, right? So at the bottom section, those 3 braids that I've already done, there's 3 braids, so that lets you know the section above it is going to be 4 in order for each braid to fall in between each other. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna go ahead and undo this section here, and I'm just gonna split it straight in half, and that's gonna give me my 4 braids. Now, of course, I want to go ahead and go in with my product of choice to help define those parts as I taught you in the first section, okay? I'm also going to go ahead and define my middle part here a little bit, just because I can see a little mishap, so I'm going to fix that, clean each section off, and then I'll go ahead and do the braids for these so you can see how those fall. Probably going to do the next 2 rows. And then come back on camera and show you guys how that is. And remember, when we're doing our sections, we want to make sure we're cleaning up those parts and then twisting that so that we can see how it falls. You can see with these sections that the part above it is falling directly in the center of the braid. Okay, can you see that this is falling directly in the center of the braid of where, and your braids should always be centered to the square that you've created. I'm going to show you that in the next clip here, what I mean. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and I did 1, 2, 3, 4 rows for you guys. Okay, and as you can see, all of these rows have the braids falling in between each other. As I lift this up, you see how that's falling in between. When I pull the braids up, they're nice and flat and flush to her scalp, so when she does her buns and things, it's gonna look really good. All of my parts here are proportioned and everything. Okay, let's get into doing this 5th row. Notice how the middle part that is running down the center of her head is lining up with the part right under it. If we were to create our box right now, all those boxes are going to line up with each other. We don't want this. So we're going to use our rat tail comb, and we're going to go ahead and line it up with that bottom braid and just shoot straight up the top, because this is going to create the box that goes above it, and it's going to help ensure that that box lays flat in the center of the 2 braids that are right below where I'm parting, okay? Another thing we want to note here is if you're a beginner or if you're someone who struggles with maintaining your brick layers throughout the entire head, notice that I started this row in the middle of her head. I didn't start on the side and start creating my brick layers. I started in the middle of the head. This is going to help ensure that your brick layers, that you maintain that sequence throughout the entire head. Sometimes when you start on the side of the head, you tend to, if the braids on the side of the head are smaller or are bigger due to the density of the hair on that side, because as we know, a client's hair can have different density when you get to the nape, when you get to the edges, and when you get to the center of the head, the density changes. So if those parts are bigger, it's going to mess up your sequence as you go along this part. Starting in the center of the client's head is going to be key to maintaining your brick layers. Now, once we went ahead and finished, notice how as I twist, lets me know that that braid, when I create it, it's going to fall directly in between those 2 braids right below it. Once that center one is done correctly, the rest are going to be done correctly, regardless of if you have to go slightly bigger or slightly smaller on the side edges of the client's head. Typically, if you have to go a different size, you're going to go bigger because the client's hair tends to get finer on the edges, not thicker. But everyone's different. Every client is different. Some people who have that high density, you can go a little bit smaller if need be, depending on how their hairline is also etched out. So there's so many things that plays a factor into how you create your brick layers, which is why starting from the middle, it's going to work out for you every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and continue doing my brick layers on the left side of this client's head, then on the right side, and this row will be complete. Now coming over here to our right side of the client, we're still on that same row. We're going to go ahead and create the brick layers for this side. It's going to be the same exact thing. We're going to make sure we're using our product of choice to clean up these parts. I'm going to line my rat tail up with that bottom braid where it falls in the center of its box. And I'm going to head and clean up the part for that. Continue on until this row is done. Continue creating your brick parts exactly how I showed you on this video, and when it's all said and done, you will officially be a pro at how to pre-part and part your sections for knotless braids. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. Stay tuned for my next video where I will do medium-sized knotless. See you soon.